What's up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7. It's time for another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. I'm your host, TJ Zwarych, and I am excited because not only do we have a great show in store for you today, but this is my first Andor show. I've been in either Toronto or Calgary for our last two, and so I'm thrilled to get to join the show now and chat about some Andor. No Damon this week. He's taken a week off after carrying the load while I was gone the last couple weeks. But joining me for, I believe, the second straight week, if not the second straight week, 2 out of the last 3, Carlos Freitas from the Agents of Fandom. How you doing, Carlos?
Hey, I'm doing good. It's 2 consecutive weeks, so I'm here. Andoring it up.
When it's rare, Carlos, that we get a show that we're talking on the podcast that you genuinely love, and so when it happens, we got to make sure that you're on as often as possible and joining us as well, returning back to the pod for the first time for our Andor season, but definitely not the first time. So hopefully you remember her from Mama's Geekly. We got Arzu. Welcome back, Arzu.
Hello, Geeky Waffle, not Mama's Geekly. Wrong geek.
That's what I meant. Mama's Geekly is a person. And we were just talking off screen, Arzu. We had a long day.
It's been a long day. We had a very long day.
My brain is not exactly where it's supposed to be right now. But from the Geeky Waffle, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited. I'm happy to be back. It's always a good time.
Couldn't agree more. Very happy to have you on. And before we start diving into any Andor, Carlos, I didn't get to hear your Whatcha Watchin portion last week, so I want to hear it. And Arzu, we haven't talked in a while, so I want to know what you've been watching.
Actually, I have an answer this time. But I don't know. Carlos first, me first. I don't know.
You first.
So I started binging Cobra Kai. Because I used to do karate when I was younger, like both as a kid and then in university too. So I really like karate, and I just kind of never gotten around to it. But the new movie's coming out at the end of the month, so it seemed like a good a time as any. So that's where I'm at. Other than like Andor, obviously, but. Yeah, that's what I'm watching.
Carlos, how about you? What you been watching?
So last week I said I was watching Government Cheese, and then of course haven't watched an episode of Government Cheese since last week. So really, it's been Andor and Thunderbolts. Watch that. I saw Sinners, and then I saw Thunderbolts in 2 consecutive weeks, and I don't know the last time I went to the movies to see 2 separate movies in 2 consecutive weeks. Having kids is hard, and it takes a lot of your time away, especially my old movie-going time. So,
what did you think of Thunderbolts? I don't know if I actually got to hear your full review of it.
I really liked Thunderbolts. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really smart script. And it's the climax of the movie, without spoiling anything. The climax of the movie is what I wanted for WandaVision, which is one of those things that, like, one of those shows that I just don't love as much as everyone else. And you're right, it is rare to have me on to talk about a show that I genuinely love. So, and it started with WandaVision.
Not looking forward to. We already have chatted Thunderbolts, so if you want to dive up, check out our full deep dive. Words are damn hard today, jeez. You can find our Thunderbolts review up on the Agents of Fandom YouTube page, as well as Sean Mott, Metalcore Nerds' interview with Jake Schreier, the director, and my interview with Val herself, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, up on the Agents of Fandom YouTube page and wherever you get your podcasts. I haven't been watching much other than Star Wars Rebels. I'm in the midst of my Star Wars Rebels rewatch for the 8th, 9th, 10th time now. But after seeing Andor, it just got me so excited to dive into this specific time of the turning point in the rebellion. And this few episodes of Andor is kind of an exciting time to weave into some Rebel stuff as well, which we'll get into. But in addition to my Star Wars Rebels, I'm in a full-on Star Wars fix. I've been started playing Star Wars Outlaws again for the first time in a while. I really enjoyed the Lando DLC, but I was quite disappointed at how quick I finished it. It only took me like 2.5, maybe maximum 3 hours. And so I've kind of once again remembered why I had stopped playing, as I just ran out of things to do. I could pick up some more contracts. You're playing as Kay Vess. You're a thief slash bounty hunter slash doing whatever you can to make ends meet and weaving throughout the crime syndicate. So there's always more you can do, but run out of all the main stuff. But I'm excited about a week from now, a little bit over a week. We have the Hondo DLC come in, and Hondo is, speaking of Star Wars Rebels, one of my favorite side characters in all of Star Wars. So can't wait for that to come out. But the people are here to listen to us talk about Andor. Arzu, we already know Carlos's thoughts on the series as a whole. He loves it. What have been your thoughts on season 2 so far?
I like season 2 more than season 1. I don't know if it's the pace that I like better. I really like the 3-episode drop because I can really marinate in the theme of the week, as it were. I can't imagine watching this week across 3 weeks in one go, but I've really been enjoying it. It's intense. It's heavy. Like, you definitely have to. I don't watch them the night before because I know I won't be able to, like the night of, because I know I won't be able to sleep. But yeah, I'm really enjoying season 2. I think, yeah, nothing but good things to say.
I feel like I'm in the major minority, but I'm enjoying season 2 less than season 1 as a whole. I agree I'm liking the 3-episode drops, but as I'm watching these arcs, it's just making me wish that this was a 3-season, 4-season show as opposed to a 2-season one. Like, I feel like each third episode specifically builds so much momentum that when we get the year gap and it kind of halts, it just throws me off a little bit. I feel like right when things get going, we're restarting the story over again. Having said that, 7, 8, and 9,
yeah,
I think are not only the best Andor ever. When I watched the screeners, my initial thoughts on season 2 was that overall as a whole, I didn't like it quite as much as season 1, but the highs were even better. And 7, 8, 9, I think, are not only my 3 favorite episodes of Andor, but maybe the 3 best episodes of Star Wars television. Carlos, I'll let you elaborate, but we talked a bit off screen that it was a hot take, but I don't know it a little. I don't think that you're wrong. And so I'll throw it to you first. 7, 8, and 9, spoiler free general thoughts. What did you think of Andor?
Yeah, my thoughts to you were, if they released this in theaters, this would be the best Star Wars movie of any Star Wars movie. And that's my hot take, I guess. I adore these 3 episodes of television. I think we've been so blessed with TV this year, and I think Andor has given us 2 or 3 of the best episodes of TV of the year, and some of the best episodes of TV that I will ever see. Like, I'm going to go back to this arc over and over again. I know, and actually, kind of a bonus of the way they're doing this season, I don't have to binge the whole season. I can just kind of watch this little 3-episode self-contained arc. But I will binge it. I mean, I'm going to binge it all over again. Yeah, no, this 3 episodes, I think I've been telling people, I think this is the best 3 hours rounding of Star Wars that I've ever seen.
Arzu, how about you? What did you think of the 3 episodes, and where would you rank it among Andor arcs and the extended Star Wars universe at large?
Okay, I'm gonna take that one at a time. So what did I think the episodes? I think, to your point about the pacing and things kind of building up at the end, I think this, of the 3 arcs I've seen so far, because I didn't have screeners for this, is the best paced arc, because it really builds up in that middle episode. And I actually found myself thinking, like, well, where are they going to go from here? Because the 3 episodes have been progressively building, but it doesn't. It kind of like winds down. It's like the find out part. You know what I mean? So I think of the season thus far, it's the best paced. I think it is one of the tenser, better arcs of the show as a whole. I think this one and the first arc of the season are going to stick with me the most. Just all told. It's a hard question, though, in terms of Star Wars television. Like, in terms of the way Andor is made with, like, intent and, like, precision, there is no other show like this. Is this something I find easy to rewatch? Maybe not, because, like I said, it's really heavy. So I don't know how to rank it among other Star Wars, but in terms of Andor, like, as a show, and let me just lump Rogue One in there because it all sort of feels like one big thing. I think this 3-hour chunk and the first 3-hour chunk are my favorite. I don't know how I'll reassess that next week. I think you two have seen it. Maybe you can tell me, would I like that better than this one? I don't know.
It's tough. Next week is pretty damn good as well. I felt I wasn't as high on the first 6 episodes of season 2, but the last 6 to me just went absolutely out of blows everything out of the water for me. I just enjoyed them so much. And these 3 specifically, but the next 3 as well, I really liked. I always kind of say that Andor to me is by far the best Star Wars show, but it's not my favorite Star Wars show. I'm a sucker.
That's such a good way to put it.
Like Star Wars Rebels is always, I think, going to be my favorite. That is, I liked Star Wars before Star Wars Rebels. I really liked it when I watched the Clone Wars. I fell in love when I watched Star Wars Rebels. And so Ahsoka being essentially a live action continuation is my number 1 in terms of favorites. And then Obi-Wan, just because of all the incredible stuff that we got with Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor coming back. It hit my little nostalgic soul. And so those 2 are definitely my favorites, but I can't deny that Andor is by far the best. I have another difficult question for you both, because one, I think it's most difficult because how easy is it to pull a year out of our butts and be like, oh yeah, that was a great year of television. But 2025, I don't have, and maybe it's because, there was pandemic that messed with schedules and followed immediately by strikes that messed with schedules. And now things are finally more back on track. But I can't remember a year of television since I've been covering it and actively following television that has been as good as 2025 with Andor, The Last of Us, which we're covering every single Monday, myself and Sean Mott, Metalcore Nerds, every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Severance, Paradise. I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard from everyone. The Pit.
Oh, The Pit's great.
Just like an endless list of The Studio. I haven't watched it yet, but the Nathan Fielder show that everyone is talking about is incredible. Like, I feel like this year, and I'm sure I'm missing so many great ones. Carlos, is this to you one of the best years of television in recent memory?
This is certainly one of the best years of television in recent memory. And I would say it's got to be up there with right around 08, 09, somewhere between 08 and 12. We had I think Sopranos ended, and I guess Sopranos was like 07. We had like Breaking Bad, Mad Men, Game of Thrones was on. Lost might have still been on right around then. Like there's like a 5-year run that's kind of known as the golden age of television. I think we're in a new golden age. I hope that it's because there are so many great products just that happen to be coming out. I hope it's not that they're emptying the shelves from everything that should have been coming out last year, but because of the strikes, that we're just going to eventually it'll kind of regress to the mean. I kind of hope that we're on a nice track here where everyone's kind of putting out quality content. It feels like, Disney is kind of seen like, hey, people are coming to Disney Plus for Andor. They definitely reacted positively to like Daredevil, which is a step above other productions that they've done. And I'm hoping that what the streamers are going to do is see more about it's more about quality than it is about quantity. And just like, we don't need to spray to all fields, let's slim this down and make each product as good as it can be, because there is no reason that these, a giant company like Disney can put out, The Bear on FX, but can't put out something of equal quality. Content's obviously different, but something of equal quality on Marvel or, through their Star Wars channels. I fully would expect them to do that.
The Bear, another one that's coming out later this year.
I had to mention it. I'm from Chicago, so that's going to come up a lot. The Bear is, it's basically sacrosanct.
I've never been a huge awards season person. I'll watch the shows if I'm free. I'll throw on the Oscars, I'll throw on the Emmys, maybe the Golden Globes. Like that's kind of I'll throw on the big ones as long as I'm free. But this is the first time I feel like I've ever been genuinely excited for an Emmy season well in advance, just because I'm so curious to see what takes the lead among all these great shows that got put out this year. What is going to be, which ones are going to become the favorites among awards contenders? Arzu, how about you? Like, are you enjoying this year of television this much too? And is there any year that you can remember that's been this good?
I can't remember another year. It's all sort of like 2019 onward feels like a blur to me, but I am very much enjoying 2025, if only because this year I have a bit more time in my schedule to actually watch TV, like TV that I'm not necessarily reviewing or covering, and I can actually like watch stuff that makes new stuff too. It's not just, rewatching something I've seen because I need background noise. So I'm really happy with this year of TV. I think it's like network TV, prestige TV, all of that. And like to Carlos's point about this kind of step above stuff on Disney Plus, I hope if they take anything away from Andor, it's that you need to give creators, showrunners, producers, all of that, like the assurance that they're going to get 2 seasons to tell a story, 3 seasons to tell a story, so they can really take their time. Like that, I think, is what makes Andor so airtight, is they knew how many seasons they had. They knew it was 2 seasons and it was done. So like they mentioned the Ghorman Massacre in season 1,
Right.
They don't feel pressured to do it in season 1 because they know they're going to be able to do it later. So they can really take their time to like, that's like just one example, but they can really take their time to sort of build this stuff out. So I think if Disney takes anything, any streamer takes anything away from the success of Andor, it's that you need to like tell people how long they have to cook and then let them cook. You know what I mean?
100%. And to pile on that, like with the letting them cook, I think Thunderbolts is another great example of this. Find people that you are genuinely confident in and then let them do their thing. If you have award-winning filmmakers or a young up-and-coming filmmaker or TV showrunner, whatever it is, that has a vision, has a dream, back out, get the hell out of the way, and let them execute it. If it fails, it fails. But you'll never know if you have the next big thing or not if you don't get out of their way. And I think that's been something, I talk about this all the time on the podcast, but that's something that always bothers me so much with not Thunderbolts, but a lot of the recent MCU movies we have, is I think they've held themselves back from being great. There's no better example of this to me than Thor: Love and Thunder. I think Thor: Love and Thunder had a really good movie in it. I think it needed about 15 more minutes of screen time from Christian Bale, among other things, but I think it had a good movie in it. I think the Marvels, which I enjoyed thoroughly, would have been among the better MCU movies with 20 more minutes to let them hang out together and show this incredible chemistry that this cast has, flesh out the villain a little bit more. I think Captain America: Brave New World would have been better received if we had 20 more minutes exploring Isaiah Bradley and various other things that were crucial to the story that kind of just felt omitted because it seemed like lately they want to crunch everything into a sub 2 hour time frame.
Yeah.
And to me, that comes down to studio intervention and trying to set standards and set limits to things instead of just saying, hey, great filmmaker, go and do your thing. You have a vision for this project, go and do your thing. And that's what I feel like we're seeing in full force with Tony Gilroy and Andor. This is a guy who had a vision to tell an incredible story, and they've just fully let him do his thing, assemble the team he wants to make, and put the product he wants to make on screen. Let's start diving into it, episode by episode. Spoiler warning for Andor episode 7, 8, and 9. We are fully diving into it. We get a brief intro to Yavin, where they are now located a year later. They are at the home base of what we know to become the rebellion that we know. This is the home base. We're finally seeing it come to fruition. And at the very beginning, when we're seeing the boots running, I have to admit, I thought for a second that was going to be Hera. And I was just like, this is just my Star Wars Rebels thoughts that were creeping into my head. Like I putting the clown mask on. I know that this is probably not going to happen, but I got my hopes up anyways. They talk about a freighter incoming, and I'm like, holy shit, are we about to see the ghost? But it's Will. he's back. He's away from he's no longer doing drugs with Saw, and he is back on Yavin with this corner of the rebellion, but he's still working with Luthen, who has fallen out of sorts with the rebellion. And like Cassian wants nothing to do with Luthen at this point. Bix still thinks he has value. That causes a bit of a rift between the two of them. But Carlos, I'll throw it to you first. What did you think of the intro to this episode? We see Yavin, we have Will, Bix, and Cassian all reunited, talking about the guy who brought them all together in Luthen.
This, it was great to see Yavin. Yavin's looking great, much better than the first batch of episodes of the season. This is the part of each batch where that suffers the most from the way they're releasing these episodes, because it's been a year. It feels like it kind of feels like Bix has been 3 different characters at this point. Like, what was the point of the sort of drug storyline of the second batch if it doesn't seem to have had any real effect here? Like, it's almost like a completely disconnected through line there. But like I mean, I'm in awe of these production designs. Like that the treehouse they're living in is incredible. I like the Hobbit-esque round doors in their treehouse. And yeah, I was fully expecting Will to be huffed out on, was it Rido? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember it either, because I was freaking out that Saw was referring to it as his sister. I don't remember what it's called, but
yeah, it's right, because it's Rhydonium, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rido. Yeah, I was expecting there to be some sort of connection, because I felt like, oh, he's going to be like addicted to this. No, it seems like that was something that got taken care of in the past year. I mean, and great for them, you know. I applaud their recovery.
Bix and Will just like sped through their recoveries in the year off.
They must have gone to like force recovery. I don't know, but it's one of those things that I just kind of wish there was at least some remnant of that storyline connecting through, because it does feel that much of it feels disconnected. And that's the thing I think people are kind of jarred with, like the having to catch up. Like you feel like, wait, what did I miss? Like, because it does feel disconnected from where we left them.
Arzu, what about you? What do you think of the intro to episode 7? Well, actually, it's funny, Carlos, that you said maybe they use the Force to heal their trauma. Well, we do see a Force healer later in this episode. That brings us a very interesting scene that we'll get to. But prior to that, we have Bix, Will, and Cassian reunited. A lot of animosity regarding their relationships with Luthen as well.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the intro, I think this is the first week where I have felt disoriented at the beginning. Like the first 2 episode 1s of their respective arcs, I was like, okay, it's been a year. I kind of see where we're at. With this one, with that animosity that just kind of kicked in, it was the first time where I truly felt like I'd missed something. As opposed to the other ones where I'm like, of course I missed something. I wasn't here for the last year. But this time I'm like, this seems too big for me to have missed this entirely. And obviously the hints were there with Luthen and all that like he's not getting along with people. But like, so that was my initial thought, was I was a little disoriented. I did like seeing Bix looking healthy. Mm-hmm. I'm happy she looks much better. I'm almost wondering if they were making some sort of larger point about this, like having this purpose and having Cassian and having all of that there is what helps her like through that time and all of that, which then makes the choice that she makes at the end more resounding, because like the end of the arc, because the Bix of last week wouldn't have made that choice. But she's now reached that point. So I'm wondering if that's what they were going for, but this is me just trying to figure it out like retroactively. But in terms of the opening, like Carla said, love the production design. Yavin is beautiful. This whole show, honestly, I'm just consistently so impressed with the production design. It all feels very tangible, which I love.
Another, if I could just like chime in, because what you said just made me think of another kind of point for that is like Will at the end of the second batch, feels like he's kind of stuck with Saw now. Like, you're not going back to Luthen. So when I see him, I'm like, oh, is he going to sabotage whatever they've got going on? Is he working for Saw? And then it's like, no, you're working for Luthen. I was like, but is he working for Saw, working for Luthen? And it's like, but no, apparently that has nothing to do with it. Whatever was happening with Saw was over. Saw was like, thank you for huffing with me. And he dropped him off politely back to Luthen. He Ubered him home. I don't know. He's a little.
Will go as wherever his heart takes him. You know, like he's just led by love.
Honestly,
that's not what he's led by.
I don't remember the woman's name, but the woman that he went back for in Ghorman definitely feels like that's somehow how he got back to this mission.
Drea?
Sorry?
Drea? It's like
yes.
Drea?
Yeah. I feel like that's ultimately how he got back there, you know? Like that was the reason. He follows his heart. And that's all that you need, the Force and love, and it can just
he's saving what he loves.
Beat your drug addiction in Star Wars. Love and the Force. That's all you need. I too also really enjoyed the treehouse vibes of Yavin, and I think one of the reasons I enjoyed it so much is I'm in the midst of listening to, speaking of Whatcha, Watchin, I forgot to mention what I'm listening. I've been just absolutely crushing through. I'm having daytimes alone with my 1-year-old right now, Natasha, and so I've been listening to a lot of podcasts on the speaker while we're hanging out. And I've been listening to Braving the Elements, the Avatar: The Last Airbender rewatch podcast, and one of the co-hosts is Dante Bosco, Zuko. And so I'm right in the midst of the episodes right now, right when I did my rewatch of this arc, of them talking about the Jet episodes in Avatar: The Last Airbender, where he has the freedom fighters, his little Lost Boy crew, and they live in tree houses. And Dante Bosco, of course, also is Rufio in Hook, the leader of the Lost Boys in that movie. And so I've just been like in the midst of listening to so many Treehouse Lost Boy like conversations, and so rewatching this episode, seeing them there too, it kind of kept me in that little fun, safe space of all the content I've been absorbing lately. But unfortunately, while things are good and chill at Yavin, we bounce to Ghorman, where things are not looking so good. The Empire's plan is working. We see all these news snippets, and it's just so, on one hand, tough to watch because it's so realistic with how you see their propaganda just being eaten up by the news stations and therefore eaten up by the people watching them. And Arzu, I'll throw it to you first. Their plan is working. It's tough to watch, and you can see Ghorman's civilian population. Like, you just know that it's not going to be going well for them over the next couple episodes.
No, that's another thing I kind of wish we had more of, was the time in between, like the arrival and sort of like what happened on Ghorman over the last year, because the way this kind of colonization happens is it doesn't typically happen in a day or two. It's like, it's a long con sort of thing. And the Empire's obviously been at it for a year. So this is another thing I wish we'd kind of gotten more of. That said, what we do get is chilling to watch. Not just the news broadcast, but seeing the people like on Ghorman, they're essentially in a pressure cooker, that it's that thing where their lives are getting worse in a way that they can't quite put their finger on. It's just small inconveniences. It's curfew. There's a guard over here. It's whatever. But all of these things stacked up have made their lives materially worse. And the entire planet's about to snap. And I think that's something that is extremely relevant. It's ridiculous to think how long ago this was written, relatively speaking, given everything. But yeah, it's like you said, it's hard to watch, but I think it's necessary to watch. It's framed so succinctly that yes, it's Star Wars. Yes, there's stormtroopers. Yes, they name drop Palpatine, but at the same time, like, look past that and look at what this show is telling you.
Right when they were explaining their plans for Ghorman in the last arc. Maybe it was the first one, but I thought it was the last one.
It was the first episode of the season.
The first one. When they're explaining their tactics, to me, it just screamed U.S. intervention in the Middle East. We want their oil, so we're going to try and convince the rest of the world that, like, oh, everybody here is a terrorist. Everybody here is terrible. We're coming to save their countries. And in the meantime, they're just ravaging them for oil, among other things. And then as you go throughout this arc, it hits even harder because it's also just like not 2000s news coverage, but so like exactly a 1-for-1 of basically things that are going on today in the world throughout various countries. It's hard hitting. And I think, like you said, it was such a great, you articulated so well of how just like, it's not one big thing. It's all of these small things compounding one over the other until you realize like life doesn't look anything like it does for you, like it did for you a couple of years ago. Carlos, what did you think of Empire's plan working basically to a T on Ghorman?
I mean, it's the reason it seems so prescient, even though it was written obviously earlier than this year or even last year, is because this is a playbook as old as time. This is what empires do. This is what tyrannical dictatorships do, especially when they control the media. And obviously the United States relationship with the Middle East. Look at the average Russian doesn't know, thinks Ukraine attacked them, because Russian media is pushing that narrative and saying like they hit us, so we have to defend ourselves. Like, no, everyone else on Earth can see like you're invading Ukraine. It's that this is what I love about Andor. I would still like Andor if it wasn't, about this, if it was all the same stuff, but not with the same kind of intent and messaging. But I love this series because it's telling us this is the fascist playbook. And by the way, turn off the TV and look around. Like it's daring us to.
Very, very well said. And it's like you pointed out, it's not necessarily tough to predict the future when you're looking at all the events that have happened throughout the past and gone, this is just colonialism. If the shoe fits, yes, absolutely put it on where we're noticing it. But this is what we've seen in all of recorded history since history has begun being recorded throughout the world. And, we're just living in a world now where social media has brought us, on one hand, made us on one hand a lot more aware of everything that's going on throughout the world, but on another, like Mon Mothma points out later on in this arc, the gap between truth and what is being told to us and objective reality has never been larger, and so it's a really, really important piece of media for right now. And Arzu, you mentioned how life has consistently just gotten worse for these characters on Ghorman. It's slightly funny seeing how consistently worse it's gotten for Syril, because it's just not a good guy. But it's so ironic to just see him slowly, and not even fully, but slowly come to the realization that this man who has just been, in his mind, championing order and security is actually pushing the chaos and the tyranny that he doesn't realize is happening around him.
The funny thing about Syril, and I don't remember if it was episode 7 or 8, but when he asks Dedra, like, what are we actually doing here? This is something I'm like, it's been a year. How are you just asking this question? Like, I know he's been embedded and he's supposed to be like, I know he has a job to do, but what have you been doing for the last year? He's just not the brightest bulb. And I think that is part of who Syril is he'll just roll with it and not question his orders. And then this is a big turning point for him where he does start to do that. But I'm like, you've been embedded with these rebels for a year. How are you just now wondering why the Empire is really here?
I think his story is, continuing to talk about how this show mirrors reality. So important for just seeing somebody who, I mean, thankfully, Arzu, we live in Canada where we just,
Yes.
at least for the time being, pushed away our wannabe dictator for a while.
You show offs.
It was closer than I would like it to be.
For sure. But having said that, like you just see in, like you mentioned, with the Russia-Ukraine thing, Carlos, and unfortunately, when we get it a little bit closer to home too, people who are just fully indoctrinated and are drinking the Kool-Aid no matter what and don't question things because it's easier not to. It's easier to have this thing to believe in as long as it's not hurting you too directly. And even if once it starts hurting you directly, you make those excuses because it's easier to believe that you've been right all along than to question yourself and to admit that you might be wrong about the whole situation. And even when I think what's so important, in spoiling for a later episode a little bit, is it seems like right as he's right there, right as he has the realization of, oh shit, I fucked up, maybe I was wrong, he sees Andor and immediately is like, no, it's all his fault. If it wasn't for Andor, this never would have happened. And just immediately shifts that blame. And I think it shows that people who support an empire, support a fascist regime, support a dictatorship, as long as you give them someone to punch down on, they're not going to punch up and question all the terrible things above them. And I think that was a perfect example of that with Syril's arc. What did you think of his characterization we'll get there, but coming to a close throughout this series of what we start seeing in episode 7? Carlos.
I was like, who are you throwing it to?
Sorry, I already hit R2 for that one. So now to you.
Yeah, Syril is such an interesting character study because he does evil things. He is complicit in the Empire's oppression over Ghorman. He had something to do with Ferrix. He is definitely the ops, right? But had he been put on a different course, had he had a different, had he just been exposed to a different influence, he would have been just as gung-ho for the resistance as he would have for the Empire. It was just a matter of this guy. I said it last week. This guy he wanted recognition. He wanted someone to notice. I jokingly said, like, will any senpai notice me, please? Like, it doesn't matter which one. And it almost felt like he was almost ready to flip. Like I was like, I think he might actually flip. And then, of course, I forgot that that fascist white men will blame a Mexican when they can, and so he did just channel it all into Diego Luna. But no, I think it's such an interesting character because he's not this like arch villain like we are so used to seeing in Star Wars. He's not Palpatine. He's not Vader. He is someone who has been in the pot as the water's been slowly turned up, and he realizes at the end, oh my God, it's boiling, and I'm kind of part of the reason why. I love it. I absolutely love that arc for him.
You can find my full conversation with Syril, Karn, and Dedramiro, Denise Gao, and Kyle Solar up on the Agents of Fandom YouTube page and wherever you get your podcasts. And that's one of the things we talk about is it's not unlimited power like it is for Palpatine that drives these two characters. It's just they've been indoctrinated their entire lives, and as evil of things that as much as they're doing evil things, they truly believe what they're doing is right. They believe they're on the correct path, and there are moments where they question it and go, oh damn, wait, am I wrong? But no, of course I'm doing the right thing. I'm on the right path, because it's so much easier to question everything else than it is to question yourself. We have kind of 4 characters or location arcs going throughout this. We have Ghorman, we have Yavin, and now we switch over to Mon Mothma, where she is kind of getting clued in on everything that happened with Ghorman and is sympathizing with them and is planting the seeds for her epic 9th episode that is coming. And then we get this interesting little conclusion of the episode with the Force Healer, where Andor is very Han Solo-ish, no, that's bullshit. I don't believe in any of that. And he doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to go. And not only does she heal his shoulder, but she also recognizes that this is a very important person for the coming years in the revolution. He's playing a very important role. And the part that I found about this that was most interesting, we get a little bit of that in Rogue One as well. So I thought this was a very kind of introduction to what we get in Rogue One. But the part that I thought was most interesting was Bix talks about how she's been having these similar dreams about Cassian. And she was feeling the same things that this Force Healer was feeling. Arzia, do we think Bix is a little Force sensitive?
I think she might be. I think one of the things that Star Wars has been doing lately in the Disney era, let's say, is they've really been planting this idea that the Force manifests in far more people than we think, and far more people than the Jedi. And it doesn't always come out the same way, but this sort of level of sensitivity occurs in a lot more beings than I think anybody had previously thought. So I don't think Bix is going to be found post Battle of Yavin wielding a Death Star, a lightsaber. I don't think she's going to join the Jedi Order, but do I think she's got some of that sensitivity in her? Yeah, I do.
And if I'm not mistaken, you are, if I remember correctly, you're a pretty big High Republic fan.
Yes.
And so one of the things I love is kind of from an in-universe standpoint, where the High Republic had all of these different factions of Force users, that it then just kind of, for a large portion of Star Wars, transitions back to Jedi, Sith. That's who uses the Force. There's no one else. And it kind of feels like, obviously, High Republic came after the original Star Wars stories, but in universe, it almost feels like a revisiting of roots, where we have this big Jedi era, and now that they've fallen and the Empire has fallen, we get to revisit all these different roots of, the Force it flows through everyone. It flows through every single living thing. And some people are just more in tune with it and sensitive to it than others. And it's not just the Jedi and the Sith.
There's I can't remember the exact number, but there's something like 5 or 6 at least groups on Jeddah alone that commune with the Force in some way, and that, I don't want to say worship because that's not right, but that sort of live alongside the Force in its use and practice beyond the Jedi. The Jedi use it for their very specific tasks that we know, but there are other people who just sort of live in harmony with it and study it and all of that. And I think in another era, Bix probably would have been very at home with one of those groups.
I think it's one of the reasons I love when Star Wars goes to Dathomir, or just anytime they they're going into the realm of the witches and the magical realm, side of the Force. I think that's one of the reasons why I love that so much. Is just it's a different perspective to it, and a different way to manipulate and utilize the Force that we haven't seen so regularly. Carlos, what do you think? Do you think Bix is a little Force sensitive?
I think that's definitely what was being messaged to us. But I love the degrees of Force sensitivity. She's basically, she can sort of feel something. It's not as clear for her. She's not telekinetic. She's not Force Skyping Rey and Kylo. She's able to
Force Skyping.
For her, the Force happens in her dreams, and the Force. I mean, how many? I don't know. as a American Latino, I can tell you that, like, you know, your grandma having a dream that you hit, you know, the lottery, and so you got to play these numbers because she saw this, and you know, like, that's very common. Like that happens all the time. Like we all have members of our family that's like, oh yeah, she hears ghosts, or oh yeah, she could tell, she told, you know, uncle whoever that he was going to not to get on that plane, and then the plane crashed, things like that. It's just like there is a sort of sensitivity to it, and I love the idea that, and this is consistent.
Trying to write an Encanto sequel right now. As soon as you started predicting the future, I was like, wait a minute, I've heard this one.
I love how consistent it is too with Tony Gilroy's take on Star Wars, like with Rogue One. Like, is his name Chirrut?
Chirrut, yeah.
Chirrut,
like,
and Baze. He's aware of the Force. He's definitely living in harmony with the Force, but he's not wielding the Force. He just believes it's protecting him, and it does until it's his time. And I dig that. This Force healer having the ability to discern NPCs from main characters, like, that's a brand new Force power. It's like these other people, yeah, they're, you know, they have experiences. Yes, they're very valuable. This person's experiences actually are for something moving forward. She's able to see who's on a hero's arc and who's not.
She's seen Rogue One.
That's it.
She was inserted from our universe and has already seen Rogue One, and new Cassian's role. That actually is one of my favorite things in the Star Wars universe, is different Force powers. Whereas, like, you see Raid with just these intense healing abilities. You see Ezra Bridger, who can communicate with animals through the Force and different beasts through the Force. I love when they give people those different types of powers. I got to shout out Adam Blevins popping into chat, Agents of Fandom co-owner and my former co-host on the pod. He says he can't stay but wants to pop in and say, keep crushing it. He misses us. And hi, Arzu, the Collider newsroom misses you.
I miss you guys too.
So shout out to Adam. Thank you for popping. Oh, that was cool.
Yeah. Can I do that again?
One of the reasons you got to watch us on YouTube is you get surprise cool graphics that Arzu somehow figured out how to use.
It's a MacBook thing. It happens at work sometimes. I'll just like gesture with my hand, like fireworks will go off. I don't think it's
Arzu, I think you might just be Force sensitive. I think
that's it. I can conjure hearts with my hand.
Yeah, you can conjure Force emojis. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's an honor to be in your presence. One of the reasons you got to watch us on YouTube, and smash the like button when you're watching us on YouTube, so you get to see people learn that they're Force sensitive live on the podcast, an experience you don't quite get the full effect of if you are listening in podcast form. Episode 7 comes to an end, but Cassian beforehand, after giving Will and Bix all that drama for still being in contact with Luthen, he says, all right, fine, Luthen, I'll take you up on your job. I will head back to Ghorman to assassinate the woman who has been after me and after you since the first season long ago, Dedra Meero. Let's go take her out. Episode 7 was fantastic. Episode 8 is even better. We get the full beginning of the Ghorman Massacre. Not only is the Empire on location trying to herd the people to the plaza like cattle to the slaughter. It's terrifying, but especially because we saw this in a very inspirational light in season 1 with Ferrex.
Mm-hmm.
And now in season 2, it's almost like the Empire has learned from their mistakes. And they're going, yeah, try and do the same thing. Go for it. I dare you. And they do. And they're all gathering and they're protesting and they're chanting. And their leader realizes as it's too late, oh shit, this is what they want. I don't think we should be doing this, but it's too late because the tide has already passed and the wave is too powerful to stop.
Yeah.
Really, really tough. But we get an incredible moment straight out of Rogue One as Cassian, turns out when Jin says it to him, it's not the first time he hears it. When he sees the same guy at the hotel from years ago in Ghorman who is now part of Ghorman's resistance, and he says empires are rebellion. Empires, my God, words are hard today. I told you
This
I'm
is the
tired.
exact wrong thing.
The empires are built on hope.
And he loved Big Brother. Yeah.
Rebellions are built on hope. Arzu, episode 8 kind of has the same, not intro because we start on Yavin in episode 7, but same act 1 as episode 1 had for act 2, but on an even just more devastating scale. It's like, hey guys, it's almost like episode 7 in Ghorman is the Empire is going right to a net to shoot on a wide open net, and they think they're about to score. Episode 8's when it actually goes in the net.
Yeah. It was, I'm trying to like parse my feelings for this because I've said this on like elsewhere before, but one of the things with Andor season 1 when it was happening was it was airing as a revolution broke out in Iran, and I'm Iranian, so I was watching these two things happen simultaneously, and it like fused the two concepts in my head. And then watching this, I'm like, this is hitting so different because this is a revolution taken to the streets. This is a lot of young people who have watched their lives change, who have decided that this is not the way they would like to live anymore because of this is the inciting incident, but because of all these circumstances. So watching this was one of those things where I'm like, not that this is a poorly done. I'm like, I don't know how I feel right now. I feel this was really tight television. This was really, really hard to watch, but also, like I said before, necessary to watch. It was like seeing the difference in generation because their leader, whose name I'm completely blanking on at the moment, but is a bit older than everybody else. And he's like, no, pull back, like the Empire's here. And then it's all of these young people, these people in their 20s, 30s, whatever, who are like, but if we pull back now, this is what the rest of our lives are going to be. So we're going to like push through, see it through. And it is just a peaceful protest. And they are living in the knowledge that the galaxy is watching, much like young people protesting now know that social media is watching. The world, if the world chooses to watch, then the world is watching. So it's them kind of going, we don't know if we'll make it out of this, but we have a right to do something about it. We have a duty to do something about it because a life under Empire is not an option. So it was just, did that answer your question?
It does. And I think you summed up perfectly how one of the biggest differences between Ferrix and Ghorman is Ferrix, it feels inspirational and like we are living in a world of hope because the older generation decided, hey, if we want what's better for the next generation, we have to step in now and make that difference for them. Whereas on Ghorman, it's a little bit more, again, hitting a string on the realm of reality of older generation didn't come through. And now we are going to have to, the next generation is going to have to look down the barrel of the gun and say, I got to take my chances and make something happen. Otherwise, we are screwed right now. There's no more waiting. We're screwed right now. And it's only getting worse if we don't make a difference. And unfortunately, it's already too late, but that doesn't mean we stop trying because there's no other option. Carlos, what were your thoughts on the intro to this episode?
The Ghorman Massacre, because it's inevitable. It's inevitable, but it didn't have to be. It's so tragic because, and I don't know that we spoke about it much last week, but when Mon Mothma is going around trying to whip up votes to stop what's happening in Ghorman, and she can't even get the senator from Ghorman to side with her vote because they don't want to feel the wrath of the Empire. It's like, no, you don't understand. If you don't stand up now, it's just going to happen later, and you're going to have less support. You get, again, in last week's, Syril's talking to his mother, who is like, I won't buy anything from Ghorman anymore because they believe they're better than the rest of us. Like the rest of the galaxy has been told that Ghorman is other. And so, they can almost feel justified in, not caring what's going on in Ghorman. I mean, the real world parallels are right there. So yeah, what you do see happening in Ghorman, it did remind me of the funeral in Ferrix in the first season, which is my favorite, was my favorite moment, like the funeral procession that turns into sort of a battle song. I mean, I was like in tears watching that in season 1. This felt more like almost like, let's get this over with, because they've been toying with you this whole time, and there was a time where this could have been stopped, but no one along the way stopped it. It passed and like the senator from Ghorman who's talking to Mon Mothma being like, can you turn back the hands of time? Like, I wish I could change my, my decisions, from back then, from a year ago. It's too late. And it's sad.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. We see at his lowest, creepy Syril. I had to word it as an alliteration. Creepy Karn turns into scary Syril and goes on full attack mode on Dedra. And I want to shout out, speaking of Adam popping in, talking about Collider, I want to shout out Maggie Lovett's recap of episode 8 on Collider, where she talks about how it's really, and I'm paraphrasing, I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, but it's pretty uncomfortable when you have to feel these feelings of feeling bad for a character because of what we're witnessing Syril do to her, but at the same time knowing she's about to commit a genocide. So we only want bad things to happen to this character, but still seeing that scene, it was so powerful and makes you question everything for a second with what's going on. It was well done, terrifying, and kind of, I think, a good example of showing how high tensions are right now. And it's really kind of the turning point to me of Syril about to have his big turn and switch of sides, Carlos, like you had mentioned previously. It feels like that's going to happen. Even after he just does the most, what's the word I'm looking at here, where it's like he's not indirectly, he's done a bunch of terrible things, right? That scene with the domestic violence felt like the direct worst thing we have seen him do, like the most actionable worst thing we do. And then the next scene really feels like the closest he's going to come to the good side as well. This man's a roller coaster, flipping and flopping at all times. And then the drop of all drops on this roller coaster is when he sees Andor. And Arzu, we get an action sequence that I did not expect to see in Andor. This was unlike anything we've gotten in live action Star Wars before.
Are we talking about the brawl?
The brawl, it's just a straight hand-to-hand combat brawl.
Listen, I was not expecting him to charge in like a feral cat, and to just sort of, shout out to Kyle Solar, honestly, for this performance, because like you said, he's kind of gone from extremes, like the worst literal thing we see him do, to the closest he comes to good, to this absolutely feral performance. Just the fight choreography, all of it. But the fact that Syril has been so middle of the road, straight lace, intentionally barely emoting, and then this is the rawest we ever see him. And it's just it's all of this anger and hate that I don't think he really knows what to do with, except that he's feeling it. Like we were saying earlier, this concept of him sort of almost flipping, but then he sees Cassian and he flips back. It's like when you see somebody trying to talk to someone politically different from them and they fundamentally agree on most points, but the minute you bring up like one politician's name, they flip back to their original point. And they're like, well, no, because this person, like that's what happens with Syril, is he's like, this was wrong and we were wrong and we committed genocide. And he sees Cassian, he's like, forget that, like all out the window. It's all his fault. And just, it's, what's the word I'm looking for? it's like misplaced anger that comes out in the most, like, I have no words tonight. It's misplaced anger coming out in just the rawest possible way. And like the most uncontrolled rage I think I've seen. And everybody knows how much I love Kylo Ren. That's not uncontrolled rage. This is uncontrolled rage. This is anger with nowhere to put it, except in his fists, I guess.
It's like one of those situations where somebody just had like the absolute worst day. They were stressed out. A bunch of terrible things happened to them. You make one like sarcastic comment thinking it'll be a lighthearted joke, and they just kind of snap. I remember one time when I was a kid, my dad had an angry patch in him where he would just kind of, out of nowhere get mad, but that came to be, expected. It happened. But my mom was more even keel, not an emotional person at all. I've only ever seen her cry in my life a couple times. I've very rarely seen her get really mad. She's really even keel and level headed. I remember one time when I was a kid, we had gone grocery shopping. I was bringing in the groceries, and I dropped a jar of Cheese Whiz on the top of the stairs afterwards, and it broke and shattered. And she got so mad at me. And I like still to this day remember it as like what the hell just happened? And looking back on it as an adult, I feel like I just know she doesn't remember what happened on that day. She remembers the interaction, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I feel terrible about that. I'm so sorry." But I know that she must have just had, looking back as an adult, the worst day ever. Yep. And that Cheese Whiz shattering was just literally the last bits of willpower she had shattering, and just had to let loose a little bit. And I feel like that's what we see with Syril a little bit. Carlos, what did you think of this action sequence? Because like we're used to seeing lightsaber fights, we're used to seeing starship fights. We don't get to see much hand-to-hand combat in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, this was oddly like the most intimate fight that I can remember in Star Wars. Like they're hitting each other, and Syril is like, he means it. Like whatever he's been going through, and it's the betrayal from Dedra. It's his mother does not love him, or at least he felt that way, that his mother could not show it at the very least. He had been living his whole life for a cause that he's realizing, I've been a useful idiot for the past 2 years. He's realizing he didn't have any agency in that situation. He didn't make the choice to undermine the resistance. He was put there, and he thought he was doing something else. He is an idiot. He is a useful idiot. I think as much as like the kind of tropey storyteller in me was expecting him to have like one moment where he saved someone, like he shot, to save Andor or something like that. I am so happy that he can be a tragic Nazi, but he cannot be a heroic Nazi. Like we draw the line there. Like you can feel for him as a person, but he is still a Nazi. Like he does not get that grace from the story, and I love it. I think that his final thoughts were like, this guy doesn't even know who I am. Like, I love that, because Andor doesn't know who you are.
It's a Wanda Maximoff Thanos moment, but like a much less likable Wanda Maximoff and a much more likable Thanos, because we see it in the reverse where the good guy doesn't know who the bad guy is, as opposed to vice versa.
I love it. Go ahead.
Something I really like about this on that note is the best fights in Star Wars, best fights in general, are the ones that have like really personal stakes. Like it's not just a brawl for the sake of a brawl for Syril. This is the be all end all of his conflict. And what then elevates it is we realize we know who Syril is. We're on episode 8 of season 2. Cassian has no idea who Syril is because he's gone years without ever remotely crossing paths with this guy. He doesn't know who he's dealing with. So then that adds like this extra layer of, oh, right, this is only one-sided personal. It's not at all it's a survival fight on the other side. And then the way it ends, if I may be permitted to go there, is Syril just gets shot in the head and then that's it. It's not a meaningful death. It's not a death he saw coming. It's not a, I don't want to say heroic because it wouldn't have been heroic in any case, but it's not a death that we really like linger on, because ultimately he is not important to Cassian's story. He is just another guy. We just happen to know who Syril is because we're watching the story, but nobody else in the larger rebel, even like within the rebellion's narrative, nobody else knows who he is. Dedra does, and Cassian's there for Dedra, but you know what I mean?
He realized at the last second he's always thought of Andor as his arch nemesis, and in reality he's just his obsession. This dude never, not only does he not think about me at the same level that I think about him, he doesn't think about me at all. And that's just so sweetly devastating. Like, it's just sucks so much for him, but it's so sweet to see on our end because it's just a character that it's like, all I want is for something bad to happen to this guy. Not only is he a Nazi, but he's just so punchable. Like, I'm not a violent person. I just want to punch him in his little noggin, though, his little face. And so it was a very, very sweet end to his character from a cheering against him type of standpoint. But unfortunately, it also is a very sad end for Ghorman. The Ghorman Massacre is completed. Thankfully, although he did not complete his mission, Andor escapes, and Dedra's just left looking at the results of what she has done, knowing that what's his name, Syril, is probably dead. We see his mother, who is literally the worst person ever, crying. And you just have a second of like, oh no, poor mom. No, fuck her. She's been the worst too. And just a second of like, oh no, poor lady. But then you, of course, remember how terrible she has been throughout this as well. And episode 8 is weird because it kind of felt like so much happened, but it just zipped by. Like, it's a perfect act 2. It is a perfect act 2 in this arc where so much is going on, but all of a sudden you're at the end of this movie and it's like, oh damn, I've been in this theater for 2 hours already. That's kind of what I felt like with episode 8. I'll throw open to either of you any other final thoughts here before we go into episode 9. And I thank you both for coming on this journey for me because I realize it takes a long time when you're going through each of these episodes.
I have one very lighthearted thought, which is I know people have talked about the Ghorman language being very close to French. It sounds French. The actors, I think, are mostly French. It's a very strange experience as somebody who's fluent in French to listen to Ghorman because I keep thinking there's something wrong with me that I don't understand what they're saying. I'm like, this is what French sound like to people who don't speak it. Because I'm like, I keep thinking I should understand them, and then I don't, and then I'm getting frustrated with my own brain. So that had been my thought through all of the Ghorman episodes. Where I'm like, I feel like something's wrong.
100%. I got the literal exact same feeling where it's almost just like, did my brain stop working? Like, why isn't my translator on? Like, why am I not?
I can't process the language anymore.
Yeah, because it's almost like I've heard that it's kind of a mix of French and German, right? Yeah. And so it's almost like they're mixing in German, but with a perfect French accent. Mm-hmm. And like, it just sounded very like the accent is so similar to so many French teachers that I've had before. I don't know if that's like if it's more of a Quebec French accent or what, but I'm hearing them and I got the exact same feeling of like, why don't I understand you like that?
But then
just the way it hit my ear was the exact same that French does.
But the words aren't French or German. And when they do sound like a French or German word, they don't mean what that word means in the real life language. Like there was one exclamation word that they were using, like like it was just one word. So I was able to, I'm like, okay, this word they're saying is that word in the subtitle. And it sounded like a French word, but it didn't sound like the French word that it was supposed to be. Like it didn't mean the same thing. I'm going, I can't do this.
They apparently developed this language to the point where the actors could improv in it. There were certain like phrases that they could just say. And there was like a high Ghorman and low Ghorman. And there's also like 2 distinct written languages for this. Like, I think that's got to be probably the coolest job on a production, like a behind the scenes production. It's like, oh, what did you do for Andor? I created languages. So that's cool. My final notes for this, 2 of them. I think, yes, it is traumatic and jarring to see Syril choking Dedra. Thematically, the idea that once she's seen what she's done, she feels choked again. Like she like her decisions are choking her now. Like now she's choking her. I loved that kind of callback to it. And on a lighter note, we get some K2, what are they called? KX droids? What are they called? KX droids. And they are incredible.
Are they K2? Or is that just the specific one?
That's the one is K2SO,
okay,
but the line is KX droids.
Yeah. So yeah, they are Terminators. They are terrifying. And yet K2SO is my favorite droid in all of Star Wars. So yeah, hope springs eternal. I can find love in that hopeless place. So
I feel like if you played the Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor games, you know when those things roll into the room, you got problems. You got problems coming your way because those things are absolutely terrifying and they pack themselves a punch. While this arc as a whole, I think, is so spectacular, Episode 9 is my favorite Andor episode, period. I just thought Episode 9 was so wildly incredible, and we'll get to the Mon Mothma speech. But, like, we'll get into the details of the speech, but I again, her and I talked about this on the Andor red carpet in Toronto, so you can find my interviews with Luthen Rael, Stellan Skarsgård, and Genevieve O'Reilly, Mon Mothma, up on the Agents Fandom YouTube page, wherever you get your pods. And we talked about this speech in particular, and I undersold it when I was talking to her. Now that I've rewatched this and kind of thought it through a little bit, because I was fresh off my watch when I had talked to her, I had said that like this was my favorite Mon Mothma moment we've gotten in Star Wars. This is one of my favorite all-time moments in Star Wars. Her speech specifically is one of my favorite all-time Star Wars moments. And while I don't think anything will pass Star Wars Rebels Season 2 finale, when we get a certain reunion between a former Padawan and a former master, but this is one of my very, very top Star Wars moments. I just thought it was so incredible. Prior to getting there, the Ghorman senator is arrested in the Senate. He is yelling as he goes out, like, remember us, talk about us, please see us. Don't let this become you next. And Mon Mothma wants to take the Senate floor and say something, but it has a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross if they're going to make this happen, because one, she can't just go out there and take the Senate floor. There are pathways that in order to get the exposure, to get everyone's attention, she's going to need some help from Bail Organa, who is not the Bail Organa we know and love. He's not Jimmy Smits. He's Benjamin Bratt. And I will say shout out to Benjamin Bratt. He did a really great job as Bail Organa this episode. Even though every time I see him, I still think of the Miscongeniality guy. Like that's where my head goes every time I see Benjamin Bratt. I still thought he did a really great job as Bail Organa. And the other thing that she needs from him is not only his help getting onto the Senate floor, getting everybody's attention, but getting the hell out of there as well. Because she knows as soon as she goes against Emperor Palpatine, her days in the Senate not just her days in the Senate, but if she stays there, her days on alive would be numbered, and her days in the Senate are definitely over. And so she's got to get the hell out of there. She needs help. And Luthen warns her. She says, hey, I know you got Bael's help here, and he's planning on getting you out of here, but his security detail is compromised. Let me introduce you to my friend Cassian Andor, who this entire show has been about. And while you've stolen the show in many scenes, why don't we get our two main protagonists together here? Luthen's been bringing these crews together, and now he's finally bringing Andor and Mon Mothma together, and he's going to get you the hell out of there. Let's talk about basically everything pre-speech, because again, this moves so fast, but it just felt like a true political thriller, Arzu, when they're just like, all right, it's time. Let's make the speech. Just felt like the day before the big day leading up to, I guess it was, because this episode starts a day before the speech, and they did a really great job of like the nervous panic of the day before was encapsulated really well at the start of this episode.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing this season overall has been the Mon Mothma stuff, the political stuff, because it is just the tension that is created by like, will this lady get to make a speech? And I'm on the edge of my seat. It's like the nuance that goes into every little conversation that Mon has, be it with Perrin, with Luthen, with Bael, like whatever, however she's trying to play whatever situation she's in, she's constantly on a knife's edge. She is constantly aware that she has to, even just crafting her speech has to be done just so. Getting herself into her little Senate pod has to be just so. The person who goes with, like, all of it is such a delicate game. And I think we like really underestimate how much balancing Mon is doing at any given time, because we're all aware of it. But whatever we see, there is so much. She's the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more that she has to think of at any given time. And I think like this prepping for her speech with Bael, and just how do I make a speech? Because she's finally hit that point of like, I have to say something. And how do we make that happen? I think just that coordination between the two of them is such a good encapsulation of what Mon Mothma's inner life has been like this season. It's just, she has an objective, and how do I make that happen? And there's no more dancing around it, and there's no more niceties. There's no more, how do we play all five sides of this to sort of ensure senatorial longevity? Now she's just throwing it all out the window, so to speak, and now because she has hit her breaking point.
And it's something so hopeful about watching this and going, this is what the world is missing, is somebody with privilege and with power stepping up and saying, this needs to change. This is wrong. This guy is the problem. This is what we're going to do. And it's just kind of like shocking and refreshing to see this, like, wait, a politician with a moral compass who actually wants the best for its constituents, who their main priority isn't getting reelected and making more money and amassing more power. It's to protect and to care for the people that are voting for them. It's a culmination of everything that we want out of our politics in this world. And we kind of get to see the almost like pre-election day jitters is kind of what it felt like, Carlos, of, you know, she wasn't becoming the new emperor, she wasn't becoming the new president, but this was her transfer to become leader of the rebellion, essentially. And it kind of felt like a pre-election day, hoping your candidate will win, but also hoping your candidate will make it out alive, even though we know she will.
Yeah, this is the pacing of the show is picked up, right? In the last batch of episodes, someone tells Luthen, normally you would have had me stake out these, this thing out for however long, and now you're just telling me to go, do this. And Luthen's like, the time for that is over. Like it's picking up. And it feels almost like like in Infinity War, where Thanos has the Time Stone, right? And now Doctor Strange is like, we're in the end game now. That's what this feels like, is we're in the end game now. No more hiding. No, we're calling our, we're declaring our sides. No more, scheming behind the scenes, for at least for Mon. She's going to have to be the public face of the rebellion. And that's scary. Like that's terrifying, because how far reaching the Empire is. That they know everything about you. They've been following you. Your drivers work for them. You also know that you can't trust anyone, but you kind of have to trust someone because you can't do this alone. It's terrifying. Beautifully played by Genevieve O'Reilly. This batch of episodes gave me the battle stuff that I wanted. It gave me the commentary that I wanted. It gives me like intimate character moments that I love, and it gives me the political intrigue. Like, this is why I think this is the best Star Wars that has ever Star Warsed. Like this 3-episode arc, and yeah, it does. The fact that the battle, the massacre at Ghorman, is not the crescendo of these 3 episodes. Like, it actually, no, wait, there's more. Like, it's just as exciting, even though way fewer people are going to die. Some people are going to die. Way fewer are going to die by the end of this episode.
Shout out to our friend Matt Remke with the movies or sports reference, but it really does feel like a buzzer beater happened at the end of episode 8, and now we're going to overtime, and it's like, oh shit, I thought this crazy game was going to be over, but we got 5 more minutes, a whole nother period of action here. And that's what this episode felt like. And it all culminates to Bail Organa proposing point of order to invoke Article 17252, which is put in place by the Emperor's team. And so a little bit of using your own power against you here. And to make sure I don't butcher any of it, I'm going to make sure I have it up in front of me. Here is the wonderful Maggie Lovett's article of the recaps for Andor. Might as well pop it up on the screen to help me out a little bit here, since I can't remember anything on my own because it's been a long day. I stand this morning with a difficult message. I believe we are in crisis. The distance between what is said and what is known to be true has become an abyss. Damn, that's a powerful line. Of all the things at risk, the loss of an objective reality is perhaps the most dangerous. The death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. When truth leaves us, when we let it slip away, when it is ripped from our hands, we become vulnerable to the appetite of whatever monster screams the loudest. The Chamber's hold on truth was finally lost on the Ghorman Plaza. What took place yesterday, what happened yesterday on Ghorman, was unprovoked genocide. Yes, genocide. And that truth has been exiled from this chamber. And the monsters screaming the loudest, the monsters we've helped create, the monsters who will come for us all soon enough, is Emperor Palpatine. And then she is cut off. It's become one of my favorite moments in all of Star Wars, just since watching the episode and since rewatching the episode today and thinking about it more. Arzu, I'll throw it to you first. What did the speech mean to you? And we kind of knew a big Senate moment for Mon Mothma was coming. To me, this blew away my expectations.
I don't think, because we saw like the snippet in the trailer of her in her Senate pod, and I don't think I realized quite what that moment was going to mean. But to touch on something you said earlier, that a politician making a speech like this without thinking about re-election, the fact that she is up there advocating for a group of people who have just been brutally massacred, but also a group of people who are not from her planet, whose family, surviving relatives are not in a position to vote for her again. Nobody's going to vote for her from Ghorman because they're not her constituents. But because their death represents this massive imperial overreach, the fact that she sees that, she's cognizant. There are so many politicians now who would just kind of be like, what a senseless tragedy, thoughts and prayers, and not go beyond that. But she's out there going, this is genocide. This is a word that, you know, that real people hesitate to use. And she says it twice. And that she, you know, just that she has officially nothing left to lose. And is telling the galaxy that if they don't see this genocide for what it is and don't see this imperial overreach for what it is, that this is, that all of them will have nothing left to lose because they're going to have nothing left, because this is just going to continue. It was just another one of those things that I'm like, this is shockingly upsetting in how relevant it is. But also, if you look at any point in human history, it was relevant then too. So yeah, it's just like truly the highlight of this arc was that speech.
Carlos, your thoughts?
So behind the scenes, I'm working on an essay about Andor and what it has to say about our current political moment. And I had told our fearless editor Garrett, hey, I think my words are locked. I don't think there's anything that can happen in episodes 7, 8, and 9 that's going to dramatically change what I have to write, because I've been writing it for weeks. As soon as I saw it, I messaged, I was like, damn it, I was wrong. I've got stuff to add. And it's definitely
you said that to me too, and I was just biting my tongue. I was like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely meant plot-wise, because I knew where the plot was going to go generally, but yeah, I forgot that those Gilroy boys can drop some bars in their writing, and that speech is incredible. And I was reminded of during, I want to say it was 1939, if I'm not mistaken, might be 41, somewhere in that span. America was not yet in World War II. Charlie Chaplin makes a film called The
And
Great
you would have
Dictator.
just been a teenager at that time.
I mean, I had just learned to drive. TJ, I'm what, 9 years old? How old are you? Like, whatever. Anyways,
I know.
Yeah. Anyways, Charlie Chaplin made a film called The Great Dictator. It's on, well, in the United States, it was on Max when our latest president took over. I don't know if it's still there, but Charlie Chaplin makes this film. It's a comedy where he plays essentially a Jewish barber, and he plays a satirical version of Hitler. And the two look alike, and it's a plot point that they look alike. 39, the dictator was, thank you, in the chat there. So the film ends with Charlie Chaplin delivering this incredible monologue that is speaking out against Hitler, against fascism, and saying like, hey, this is here, this is happening right now. We need to do something. We cannot let this go on. It's 1939. The United States will not join the war for another 2 years. And how incredibly brave it was of someone like Charlie Chaplin, again, someone with privilege, someone who didn't have to say anything, to use his celebrity to scream at the world that there is this atrocity happening and we have to stop it. That's what I was thinking of when I saw Mon Mothma's speech. Like, she has all of the privilege. She has the most to lose materially, right? She's already sacrificed, family, her marriage, her daughter, she's sacrificed that, but she also had this incredible privilege that she is saying, I cannot stand by. Now, on a comedic thought, because that's where my brain goes, you saw how slowly her pod moves out, right, to give that speech. All right, so she's given this speech, and she's like, Emperor Palpatine is the real monster. And then I'm just picturing my head, like, cutting away to, like, as this pod slowly goes back to, like, where it was. And she's like, awkward. This is awkward. like it just would. That's where my brain went, because I'm broken inside, honestly, guys. That's what I'm trying to say. But no, I love the speech so much. And yes, I will be using excerpts for that essay that I'm writing.
When they cut the power to her pod, I don't know, I was expecting her pod to fall. I'm like, they cut power to everything, but like it was just the feed. But I thought for a second the pod was going to go down.
Carlos is broken inside, much like a Syril Karn, but he's on the side of good. You know,
Wow.
Carlos, Syril,
Oh
both broke
Ouch.
inside. Carlos, Syril, both investigators at a bank. The only
yes,
difference
true.
is Carlos is on the side of the rebellion and Syril on the side of the Empire. I'm just kidding.
I
was watching last week when you made the reference to your job and how you guys both shared the same job at the bank, and so I had to make a call back to it.
I will say I have a very loving wife and mother, and healthy relationships with so many people. So, oh wow, okay, yeah, fair enough.
You'd think after this point in the episode that we would start. I mean, we do start winding down, but you would think we had hit most of the momentous things that happened in the episode. Nope. Andor, with lots of work, gets her the hell out of there, gets in a shooting match with the compromised Bail Organa team, eventually takes her not to Yavin, but to meet up on a side planet that I did not write down, but they meet up with Clea. Luthen's not there, but they meet up with Clea, who I didn't get a chance to talk about earlier, but on earlier episodes, but I loved that scene so much in episode 6 with Clea and trying to get the bug out of that piece when they were working there. I thought that was fantastic. They meet up with Clea, and Clea says, no, you're not getting actually taken back to Yavin. We're not taking you there. It's actually Gold Squadron who's going to take you there. And this is exciting, my friends, for our Star Wars Rebels fans, because not only do we get to see a lot of Gold Squadron here, but Gold Squadron is going to pick up Mon Mothma and bring her directly into a Star Wars Rebels episode for us to watch, and where she's going to be giving another incredible speech here in the coming weeks of the rebellion. And who ordered Gold Squadron to go and get Mon Mothma from this location? None other than Phoenix leader Hera Syndulla. And so an exciting moment for Rebels fans within Andor. Luthen, we don't know if he's going to be okay at this point. Clea told him to go back to their studio, prepare for the worst. Now that all of this has gone down, they don't know if it's going to go well for them or go terribly for them. And ultimately, after saving the future leader of the rebellion, Cassian's tired. He's like, I think I've done enough at this point, right? Like, how many tide-turning, life-saving, close call missions have I had? I think I'm good. I have this amazing, beautiful woman at home. I don't get to see her enough. I think I'm all done. And Bix says, that's nice, Cassian. Why don't you get some rest? Why don't you go to bed? I'll make you some tea. And unfortunately, because of the previously aforementioned potential force sensitivity from Bix and the conversation they had with the force healer and everything Bix has learned about Cassian and the rebellion, she knows he's too important to the cause.
She also has that conversation with Vel.
She also has the conversation with Vel. Great point. Thank you. I completely forgot to actually.
But I honestly, by that point, I think it's just Vel confirming what Bix already knows.
Yeah. And she knows that as much as she loves Cassian, she wouldn't be able to live with herself if she pulled him from this situation because the rebellion needs him. And she leaves him a beautiful video, or is it a note or a video? It's a video.
It's a video.
Right? Yeah. And she's gone. Now, I will say, as devastating of a moment as this is, many Andor fans have been terrified of Bix's potential fate because she's not in Rogue One. So if she's not in Rogue One, where is she? At least this is probably good, right? Like, at least this probably at least increases our odds that Bix makes it through. Arzu, did this take you by surprise? Give me your breakdown. What'd you think?
Yeah, it did. I was among the contingent that thought Bix was just going to die. Very glad she doesn't. It's it's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. It's tragic. It's I just can't help but like put myself in her thoughts, because she tells Cassian the rebellion needs you. I'll find you after, which we know she's not going to. But then there's also that mental toss up of, had she not left, he would have left the rebellion. He would still be alive. But had she not left, he wouldn't have gone through with what he did on Scarif. And the Empire might still be in power. They maybe wouldn't have gotten those plans. You know what I mean? So it's the fact that decision-wise, there is no scenario where they have that life she wanted. And that's the most heartbreaking thing, is because either decision wouldn't have led to that outcome. So I am heartbroken for both of them. I'm especially heartbroken for her because I can't imagine what that's going to be like for her to live with, just that knowledge. But I know they've said at the end of Andor feeds directly into Rogue One. And TJ, don't tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I really want to know what happens to Bix after the events of Rogue One. I want to know what she finds out, what she knows. You know what I mean? But because I like where she's at in her head now, post leaving Cassian, is the part I want to know the most.
Carlos, what were your thoughts on her departure, the speech, the decision to leave? Did you see it coming? Give me your breakdown.
I think the show is pretty much telegraphing that she was going to have to be the one to make this decision, because Cassian's not going to leave her. And I love that he's got a point where that he's like, basically he could retire and his jersey's in the rafters. Like, he has been through it. He has definitely given, to this cause for years at this point. And he would be justified in saying, like, I've done my part. But she knows, and the Force healer knows, and I think Cassian knows, like, there was more. There was more to give. Just like when he was, talking to Luthen and saying, like, I gave everything. Luthen's like, no, you haven't. Like, no, this isn't everything. And he will give everything. I think it was also great that the Force healer refers to him as a messenger, because that is essentially what he ends up like. He is part of the crew that will deliver the message that leads to the end of the Empire. I loved the touch that it isn't until he calls out her name that the message starts. It's kind of like a Hey Siri kind of thing. Sorry if I just started everyone's series. But like, she's like, he says, Bix, and the message just starts playing. I love that little touch. Like, she set it up because she knew. And I love that she lives at least through this episode, at least for another year, because she has been, like I said last week, she is like Jenny and Forrest Gump. Like, if there is a way to punish this woman, they're going to punish this woman. I would love to see, and maybe this is a prediction for next episode, the next batch. I don't think it is, but I would love to see her carry on the search for Cassian's sister and just kind of tell his sister, like, this is what, your brother did. This is who he was. I think that would be a nice loose end to tie. But if I just get Bix, intergalactic Black Widow, that's awesome too, because she's pretty badass through these episodes.
Agreed there 100%. And Kyle Connolly in chat says before episode 9, they were thinking that she was going to die in a mission, but they're kind of happy they went in this direction. To be clear, I just want to be super duper clear. I'm not saying she lives through the series. I'm referencing my making notes as going through these screeners, and I went after episode 9. Oh shit! I think she might actually live now, and so that's what I mean by the odds increase. The odds increasing is that was my thought process at this point. That like, hey, if she's at least, we know that she's at least not dead to this point, and that Rogue One is coming up. So hopefully that means she's going to be good going forward. But I also think that departure speaks so well to Andor's mindset in Rogue One, because throughout this season a lot we have seen, like, especially in the first few episodes, even in very trying times, him act very compassionately to other people who are especially new to the rebellion and who are terrified, and he's kind of been like a calming presence for them. And when we see him meet Jin for the first time in Rogue One, all he cares about is the mission. All he gives a damn about is just getting this done, because all that's left is the job. Without Bix, all that's left is the grind, the rebellion. Until Jin kind of reminds him, I think, who he is. And he opens back up a little bit, and he kind of rehumanizes himself towards the end of that movie. I think that is really cool, how it's kind of like he hardened himself after Bix left, and then before the end, he remembered who he was, and he was back to an Andor filled with hope and filled with love before he ultimately met his demise. Arzu, any final thoughts from episodes 7 through 9, or any theories for the final 3 episodes?
Yeah, so just to touch on your last point about him kind of coming back to himself, the person he is in these 3 episodes is very much the person he is towards the end of Rogue One. Like it's just such a beautiful performance choice that this is a Cassian we know, because we've seen the movie. We've seen him like this. So we know we're going to see him get back to it, but we also see that sort of closed off, very mission-driven, cold Cassian in the middle. So my one theory and one hope for next week. The theory is that we are going to see a very drastic change in Cassian when we see him again. We're going to see that sort of early Rogue One Cassian, very like work driven, very mission driven, because he will have had a year by that point. And then my hope is, I think it's the Alexander Freed novelization, but it might be the end of Rebel Rising. I don't remember. But there's the bit in one of the books where they're picking Jin up from prison before the events of the movie. And I'm a little bit hopeful that we'll see that on screen. But don't tell me.
Carlos, any final thoughts from the 3 episodes, and any theories through episode 10 through 12?
Final thoughts. Great to hear K2SO at the end here. Like, I'm sorry if I offended you, but if I haven't, I would appreciate it if you don't point a weapon at me. That's amazing. And also I love the way they shot Bix's, what I'm referring to as her Dear Juan letter. I love the way they shot that. That was just great. This show is so cinematic. The predictions, honestly, I don't have many, because I am kind of not, like, this is as far as I could kind of see. Like, this is it. And now I do want to know, because if we're going to get to a Cassian who is on an arc again in Rogue One, then it almost feels like he has to end on a low, but that doesn't seem right for the end of a series. So I almost hope the show ends after Rogue One. Like, if we get some sort of like epilogue after the events of Rogue One, but then again, that would require people to have watched Rogue One to understand the ending of a series, which I don't think is practical either. So I'm kind of without really any sort of prediction, like, bearings. I don't know. Yeah.
Overall, I think this is one of the very best pieces of Star Wars content, especially in live action, that we have gotten. While my favorite Star Wars movie is Revenge of the Sith, I still kind of think, especially if you add the overall story of Andor to Rogue One, I feel like the Andor Rogue One story is one of the very best prequel stories in all of media.
Yeah.
Like, of just something that not only goes back and adds such great additional context to a story. Of one of the biggest silly parts of Star Wars was essentially, we found these plans so we can blow up their big mega death device. All you got to do is just shoot one part of it and you're good. It adds so much extra wonderful context to that throwaway line. it's, you know, it hasn't been done as cohesively. But to me, that's almost like a version of how somehow Palpatine returns. And then we've gotten all of these stories where it's like, look at all the cloning that was taking place after the Empire fell. And look at all of this, like all the things that could have potentially led to Palpatine returning. This to me is a better version of that, where it's like, oh, we got these plans. We're going to save the day now. All of a sudden adding this whole story behind a silly little throwaway line that just made it so convenient for the movie to pass in a certain direction. And then just on its own, it is so freaking good. I think Rogue One is much like Andor to me, where Andor is the best Star Wars series, but not my favorite. I think Rogue One is, even though Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie, I think Rogue One is the best Star Wars movie. And so I'm excited to watch the conclusion of this series with everyone, and we'll be breaking it down next week on Wednesday. We'll also be back on Monday talking the next episode of The Last of Us. Tomorrow, Thursday mornings, we have the Comic Corner dropping. They'll be talking about a big week in comics this week. I know Damon sent me a picture of his comic book pulls this week, and he had, like, it literally looked like over a dozen books from his comic book shop that I think he's going to be reading in advance of tomorrow, which is probably, in addition to dealing with a sickness, one of the reasons why he is not here. But if you miss Damon, you will catch him, AF Fat Thor, tomorrow on the Comic Corner. Plus, don't miss out on our Thunderbolts and Andor interviews. Denise Gow, Kyle Solar, Genevieve O'Reilly, Stellan Skarsgård, Jake Schreier, Julie Louis-Dreyfus. We got a lot of great and awesome stuff coming. So make sure you follow the Agents Fandom wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And follow us on socials at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. Arzu, the people can find your work at the Geeky Waffle, because yes. I know that is where you work, because duh. But I want to know, where can people find you on socials? And now's your time to brag. Give all the plugs, because I know you're writing all over the place at times as well. I
am. So I'm still writing at Collider. I'm just not there full-time anymore, but I'm still writing at Collider. I'm at the Geeky Waffle. I'm occasionally at Star Wars Insider. And socials wise, I'm technically still on Twitter. I'm at Arzu Amin there, and arzuamin.bluesky.social on Blue Sky, and I'm ArzuD2 on Threads and Instagram. And I try to link my work with mixed success, but that's the best place to find me. I gotta shout it out every time you're on. You have one of my favorite social tags on Instagram of anyone I know. I love the ArzuD2 name so much. It's so much fun. My best friend's friend, who I've never met in my life, she had mentioned me to him, and he was like, did she ever go by R2D2? So she told me this. I'm like, that's hysterical. And I changed my Instagram immediately. So perfect. Shout out to your best friend's friend. Carlos, where can the people find you on socials? Plus, you have an article that is already dropped for Agents of Fandom, and you've mentioned your Andor essay, which, not to get people's hopes and expectations up too high, but I have been told it is one of, if not the very best thing that will have ever graced our site. Yeah, no, it's already been entered into the Library of Congress, so that's cool. And I do hear that they will be framing it for the next president's Oval Office. So that's that. Yeah, not this one so much. No, you can find me on Twitter at Carlos Freitas Jr. I'm not spelling all that. It's there. It's there. Right. My name is here. There it is. There in the corner. Yeah, look for me there. I kind of tweet a little bit now. It's gotten a little fashy out there on the Twitter streets, so I kind of hang back. I'm also on the social media platform Spoutable, which is kind of its own little rebellion, its own little resistance upstart. And you find me there at Agent Carlos on Spoutable. And that's it. And then my stuff on Agents of Fandom. And because Carlos was a teenager in 1939, you can also find him on Facebook on the going through the Ringerverse Facebook group. But jokes aside,
thank you for joining us today, Carlos. It's a blast having you on. And Arzu, absolutely as well. Anytime we are talking a Star Wars show, I make sure I have like a note of like, okay, we gotta get Rachel on for a Star Wars show because she was talking Star Wars. We gotta get Arzu on for a Star Wars show. We gotta get Jamie Dirac on for a Star Wars show. I have like this crew of like anytime it's Star Wars, the Reckless Rebellion crew. I gotta make sure they're like top of the list. We gotta get them on for some breakdowns. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us.
Thank you so much for having me. Anytime, literally anytime, I will be here.
Glad to hear it. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us. Hit the like button on your way out. Like I said, we'll be back for Comic Corner tomorrow. Next week, we will have The Last of Us as well as the Andor final 3 seasons, breaking them down. Stay tuned for that. Thank you so much, everyone. We will see you next time. Peace.